Hello, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And once again, in layman's mode, without using any legal or political jargon, or trying not to in any case. I think I've become pretty good at it actually, using the layman's language. Let's just jump into a few things that we need to think about. First of all, we need to understand where we stand as a nation, especially considering the fact that we consider ourselves an Islamic nation, which we're not, but we consider ourselves one. So let's run with that. Because our whole constitution, original constitution in any case, well, now the way they're changing it left, right, and center, insulting the very heart of the constitution, well, our original constitution demands that we follow the Islamic infrastructure, as in the Islamic legal and constitutional infrastructure, and that any and all laws that contradict the basis of the Islamic legal structure are automatically null and void, right? Now, again, as I've explained once, many times before in many of my podcast episodes, the whole legal structure, the Islamic legal structure, is having two parallel legal systems. Okay, you have the secular legal system and you have the Sharia legal system. In fact, it is all within Sharia, but let's put it this way. You have the Sharia legal system, you have the secular legal system. The secular legal system is essential in any Islamic society to ensure that the non-Muslims are not forced to follow or be judged or be charged based on Islamic rulings, because the Islamic rulings or the Islamic law does not apply to non-Muslims, and vice versa. The secular law, in most cases, would not apply to the Muslims. And this is why every single Muslim country that you have seen has always had two legal systems running parallel to each other. And it is from there that the idea of having a secular legal system also was, incorporated and implemented and discovered and, by the modern world. Now, another thing that the modern world is now beginning to realize and beginning to understand and beginning to incorporate, albeit a bit slowly, gradually, because they're still, getting the hang of it. That is again an Islamic notion, you can say, or it is an Islamic law, you can say. And that is that there is no, it is all, everything is universal and global. It's not national. So in Islam, we do not have the idea or the concept of nationality. We have the concept of an ummah, if you remember. The ummah encompasses all Muslim states and refers to all of them as one universal state. Okay, that is why we're called the ummah. The Islamic ummah is all the Muslim nations under one umbrella of an Islamic nation in general. So it's about universality, it's about globalism. Now countries are beginning to, especially since the global village thing, countries are beginning to understand and gradually implement laws out of necessity, with the pertaining to the concept of globalism or universality, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to refugee rights, when it comes to asylum seekers and all. In the beginning, obviously, asylum seekers and refugees were, they formed a part of it, but it hadn't begun to be a part of this. I mean, they never saw it that way, although it was, as a global legal aspect or a universal legal aspect, But now they are beginning to use terms like, globalism when talking about human rights or women rights and violations and dignity of human being and treatment and all. And so these now terms are beginning to be used, or at least people are hoping that they should be used in the court of law when talking about victimization of foreigners, for example, in different countries and all. And now it is more than ever, because as we know, America and its NATO allies are prepping for war. They've dragged Pakistan into this whole caboodle as well, where they want Pakistan to eagerly, you know, as in Nigeria, we used to use the term dash, to dash their forces to the American cause, in which basically it's all about colonialization all over again. But at that point, you need to understand that this is where we start questioning ourselves, that as a country, where do we stand? So, I swear, the minute I start my podcast, that is when everybody has to speak at the top of their voices in order to create a whole problem for me. So I'm losing my train of thought, and I'm beginning to wonder where. Okay, so yeah, globalism, implementation of globalism in the court of law, while talking about human rights, while talking about foreigners' rights, while talking about women's rights. Okay, so now here the debate begins as to what kind of a country we see ourselves, right? Because that is exactly where we stand. That is our problem at this moment, as I said, because the world is prepping for war, which is basically for colonialism. So another take on colonialism, modern colonialism. Although, as I've argued before, one could say that colonialism never ended in the first place. All they did was pretend to end colonialism, but they have still maintained control over all of their former colonies. Pakistan is a perfect example of that. And here we stand today, not knowing where exactly it is that we do stand. Now, for example, what kind of a Pakistan is it that we want? If we even, are forced to come back to nationalism just because the world is now going at a darker place, the world is going down a rapid hole, the world is basically spiraling. And as we know, when just before war, you know that the governments are heavily prepping for war when they start going after immigrants, when they start going after foreigners, because these countries have actually earned the most out of foreigners, to be honest. America is on its last legs right now because they are pushing immigrations, as in they're pushing out immigrants, they're pushing out even naturalized citizens, they're trying to revoke their naturalization, and, all of that. And at the end of the day, as you can see, America is suffering. America is suffering because it's losing workforce, it's losing a stable economy, it's losing business, it's losing everything. Now, these people who are going to be forced out of America, well, obviously they are going to go through a lot of loss, and they're going to go through a lot of international rights violations, as in international human rights violations, immigrants' rights violations. But America doesn't care because, as I said, America wants to make a point, and the Americans themselves are going to suffer again because, as I said, the whole reason why the West has managed to gain the stability that they have had and to gain the power that they've had is because of the financial, especially, and the resource input, human resource input by foreign workforce, by foreign students, by immigrants. And once you start removing all of them, then you will realize that you have nothing to your name. This is something that Britain is also going to very fast realize. This is what Europe has already begun to realize, because Europe in itself is facing a crisis where now they literally are looking for young people, they're looking for young students so that they can incorporate them into their workforce as soon as possible. Why? Because they have nothing to their name, if you know what I mean. So, yeah. The problem is what they do have, which is how they attract foreigners, is that they boast to have a strong law and order, right? They boast to have a good system where the government takes care of its people, where there is the benefit scheme, where there is your retirement scheme, your pensions, whatever, right? All the things that you pay your taxes for. Where for example, I know that even if I'm living abroad, if I'm living there legally, nobody can touch me, nobody can make a problem with me, nobody can have an issue with me, because I can immediately sue that person. I can use the force of the law. The force of the law is behind me, in other words. right? So you have to have a society that is conducive to protecting your life, to protecting your assets, to protecting your rights. And that is how you are attracted. That is how those countries attract you to go and live there, or to go and plan your life there, or to go and study there, or to go and work there, right? Now, as opposed to that, if your own country is stripped of all of that, then obviously your own country becomes worse than a foreign country. Again, this is something I've talked about before. The point being that at the moment, despite the fact that obviously leaving Pakistan would be the last of our choices, but it has always been the first of our choices, because Pakistan was never ever ever conducive to to gaining reward out of hard work. It was never conducive to securing your wealth, to securing your health, to securing your lives. There is no law and order. And it has been worse. As we can see, it has been absolutely worse. You have never had the law to back you, and now the law is openly abusing you, abusing your rights. Look at what is happening with all the PTI members. Look at what is happening to Imran Khan. Look at what is happening to Bushra Bibi. Look at what is happening to Dr. Yasmin. Look at what is happening to what has been happening to Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Look what has happened to all the nameless, the unnamed, the unknown, as in in other words, the not so famous, the political members, the party members of PTI, plus the citizens of Pakistan who just happened to be there during the whole thing, or who were part of the protest, or who just witnessed the protest, or who witnessed the atrocities committed during the protest. Yes, all of them, just bystanders, all of them were kidnapped, were illegally detained, were illegally put through an illegal trial that was a farce, and all of them are sentenced to 10, 10, 15, 15 years, 20 years of so you're just sitting and thinking that, okay, this is a country that is violating. And then those countries that claim to adhere to human rights, to human dignity, and to freedom of choice, and this and that, those very countries are silent, which means that they are complicit, or they're endorsing, or they have an agreement. As the latest in a long line of tacit approval or tacit agreement, can be seen by Britain's inability to help its own citizens, or be they citizens, be they dual citizens, be they in PR status, be they in refugee status, or be they asylum seekers. It doesn't matter. But their colossal inability to help secure those people's health, wealth, and lives. It kind of makes you wonder that, again, which kind of country does Britain now want itself to be associated as, right? As in, what country now is Britain advertising itself to be? A country that is unable to protect its own people, or people that are seeking asylum or refuge there? Or is it a country that is betraying its own people, or betraying asylum seekers and refugees, while all the while reaping rewards? Because whatever those people are now earning, or whatever those people are doing in that country, it is benefiting that country, financially, again. And these were people of great reputation. These are people who are hardworking, for example, or those are people who are adding to the state's finances, adding to the state's resources, adding to the state's reputation. And the state is complicit in working with the countries that they are taking refuge from, in this case Pakistan, into allowing them to be attacked, allowing them to be assassinated, allowing them to be killed, right? As we have seen, there have been 2 attacks till date on Barrister Shahzad Akbar. 2 attacks. Once before, when somebody attempted to throw acid on him, and thankfully he was saved. Very conveniently, the British police, the Scotland Yard, the ever famous Scotland Yard, could not find anybody. I mean, they couldn't find the culprit. And now again, he was attacked in his own home. again by an unknown assailant. The whole world knows who the assailant is. The whole world knows that it is the Pakistani army that sent the assailant. The Pakistani government is involved. And the fact that the British government is shrugging its shoulders and pretending, oh, we don't know anything, means that the British government had a tacit agreement with the Pakistani army to allow British citizens or to allow refugees or to allow asylum seekers to be attacked on its own soil. So that what is the message that Britain is giving out to the world, as a country that has been advocating human rights? Well, and the country has already blown its cover and exposed itself with regards to advocacy of human rights when it declared itself a pro-Zionist country, a pro-Zionist state, and where it has always been behind the whole, in fact, the whole Israel, the whole existence of Israel, of a fake country, a non-existent country, a country that exists only on paper, is because of Britain. Because Britain occupied Palestine, and then Britain decided that Britain owns Palestine, and then Britain decided that all the Jews that were being persecuted in Britain, in Germany, in Europe, that they should be taken away and sent to Palestine with the story that they have their own country there and this and blah, 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 right? So we know that America and Britain have been working very hard to keep the Jews there in Palestine so that they can actually use them as well to keep control of the Middle East. As we know, they have planted already people in governments in the Middle East, in the Gulf. We have seen how they have upset the apple cart many times whenever the government never suited them. We have seen them do it in Pakistan as well. Now, where do we stand at this point? Again, which is the country that we want? Which is the country that we want our country to be? What is the country that we are fighting for so that we should not have to leave? Whose country is it in the first place is what we need to ask. Because as we can see, Britain has always ensured that Pakistan should never be a sovereign state. So any leader that comes and tries to make sure that Pakistan is a sovereign state, that leader is killed, ousted, jailed, exiled, whatever. But at the end of the day, their whole idea is to kill the leader because they think that once the leader is dead, at least for another 50 years, nobody will come. For another 20 years, nobody will come. And usually that is the case, as we have seen. We have been very lucky to have had leaders come from amongst us who have worked so hard, but we have been very unlucky in the sense that we've never deserved any one of them. We have never helped any one of them achieve their goals. We have always stood by when they were persecuted, and we have always allowed them to literally be killed. So again, we will ask the question, what is the country that we wish to be living in? What is the idea of having an ideal country? First of all, it has to be a sovereign state, which means nobody should have the right to dictate its political policies, its legal policies, its social welfare policies, except the state itself. Number two, the state means the masses. Because we're the ones who are paying the army, we're the ones who are paying the government, it is out of our pocket. So they're basically stealing from us, they're looting from us, and they are threatening us. So we have paid for the guns that they're using against us, right? And then again, who are these people who are, sitting on top of our heads? Are they really Pakistanis? Who are the real Pakistanis here? That's another question we need to ask. Are the real Pakistanis those who are taking all their wealth and sneaking them abroad, whose children have foreign passports, but they're there to talk against overseas Pakistanis who have been born and bred abroad, or who have gone abroad, or who have immigrated abroad, but are sending all their money back home? Who are the real Pakistanis? Again, let me repeat myself. The overseas Pakistanis who are abroad, whose children are born and bred abroad, who have passports of those countries that they're living in, but are still sending their money back here to Pakistan, are those Pakistanis? Or are these people who are sitting here as politicians and as army generals and as army officers who have foreign passports, whose wealth is taken out of this country and put into foreign banks or into foreign properties or in foreign investments, and whose children also have foreign passports? So they are, who are the real Pakistanis here? Who is the one who is actually working for Pakistan, and who's the one who's actually looting Pakistan, and who is actually breaking up Pakistan, who is acting as if Pakistan was given to them by their mother in her jahez, in her dowry? Who is it? Who are the real Pakistanis? The judges, who again are not even Pakistani citizens, because if they are Pakistani citizens, their children definitely are not. Again, these are those judges who are amassing wealth, corruption, corruption-laden wealth, and taking that wealth again where? Out of Pakistan. They're not investing their wealth in Pakistan, but they're forcing us to keep our wealth in Pakistan. They're forcing us to invest in Pakistan, and they are literally trying to take control over our investments and our finances and our assets, because you never know if any day they might suddenly, and as you know, people have done it, the governments have done it before, even the Western governments did it with BCCI, our own governments have done it with our own banks. They can suddenly freeze your accounts and take all your foreign money, those who have foreign accounts, foreign currency accounts, they would freeze them and take all that money and then suddenly declare the bank bankrupt, and then the bank will restart under either the same name or another name. So again, who is this country for, and who are the real Pakistanis? You know, what is it that we're fighting for? Who is it that we're fighting for? We need to get our facts clear. Are you really, really fighting for Pakistan? Are you really fighting for the future of your children? Or are you just want to make black money as soon as possible and enjoy your wealth, and in other words, corruption pays? So that is the mentality of the people of Pakistan. I'm sorry, but that is the mentality of the people of Pakistan: is apply shortcuts, corruption pays, so in corruption we stand united. Those of us who do not want to go down that path of corruption, who want hard work to reap rewards, who want Pakistan to be the Pakistan that was designed and dreamed of and fought for and struggled for and planned and blueprinted by, the leaders who created this country. Those of us who believe in that vision, those of us who believe that we have the right to have our own country where we can be safe, where we can exert our rights. As I said, I've had more rights living abroad than I've had in my own country. And obviously, most of that is due to, again, our own. As I said, it begins at home. It's due to our own parents. Our parents are the first people who snub us, who stop us from fighting for our rights. And that is why it has come to this. Generations of parents stopping their children for fighting for their rights, for standing up for what's right. It has come to this, that now there is a lava that is ready to just gush out and engulf the whole country, heck, the whole world now at this point. So when you stop your own children for exerting their rights, and from standing up for themselves, for standing up for what's right, then you have already placed the battle in your enemy's hands. And then you have no right to complain. So that's another take that one should keep in mind with regards to where we stand as a country, as a nation. A nation that is filled with people who are so selfish that they only care about their own wants and needs. They do not care about where the country is going, and that is a fact. That is a fact. Majority of the people in Pakistan actually do not care where the country is going. They just have a second, 2 seconds worth of thought that, where's the country going? It's going to the dogs. And they're like, oh, well, who cares? It's not like we can do anything. It's not like we can change anything. As long as our lives are going fine, it doesn't matter. When our lives will get to that point, then we'll see what to do. That is how people think. And again, people are conditioned. Again, as I said, it begins from home. It begins from home, this conditioning. But it is also a constant political conditioning, a constant social conditioning, a constant judicial conditioning also. Because the people, when they see decades and decades of how there is no justice, of how you do not have any backing of the law, of how there is no security, of how, your own parents are telling you not to fight back. So then, this is how you're conditioned to think that, okay, everybody can go to hell as long as my life is okay, as long as I am making ends meet, it doesn't matter, That's how it is. And those who are not making ends meet, they either end up committing suicide and killing their whole families, or they end up just living in quiet misery and endurance, or somehow or the other, if they're lucky, somebody manages to help them through charity or zakat programs. Or then at the end of the day, um, they would resort to corruption again, because nobody wants to live a life in constant misery. So that is how corruption then again gets bred even more. And obviously, when your own government delights in the fact that their people are corrupt, because they know that if the people become corrupt as well, then there will be nobody to stand up against the government. And again, we are proof of the fact, because the whole majority of us are corrupt. That is why we have been unable to stand up against a corrupt government for decades. So that is why we say corruption is from top to toe. And that is why we say that Imran Khan's biggest mistake was thinking that if the top is correct, then the others will be correct as well. The others will also follow the rules. But that, as we see, is not the case, because when corruption has steeped so deep inside, so deep within, and when corruption is from top to toe, then it doesn't matter if you change the top, because the toe has already had the taste of it, the taste of blood. So they're not going to let go. Easy money, who wants to let go of easy money? Who wants to go back to hard working? And that is why we say that in Pakistan, people have forgotten how to work hard. And it's true. It doesn't matter which class they belong to, which socioeconomic class they belong to. People have forgotten the meaning of working hard, and they've actually forgotten how to work for the money. Everybody believes that they have the right. That is another problem. Everybody believes that they have the right to become rich overnight, and they have the right to take on any means to become rich, because there is nobody who's going to care for them in any case, and there is no law on their side in any case, and the law is here for the corrupt. So if they become corrupt, and if they gain money, and then they'll gain power, and then they'll make connections, then nobody can touch them, because this is what they're seeing around them, and this is what is happening. And so this is how they're becoming more and more and more. And the fact that the younger generation doesn't even have anything, for example, there are no jobs, there are no businesses, there's no future. About 120 to 170 big businesses have closed in Pakistan alone, thanks to this government. And then you have utility problems, and then you have the fact that you need to afford even basics such as groceries, and you're lucky if you can afford them. As we know, the same is for America and Canada at this point. And Britain might very well go down that line as well. So this is where the world stands at this point. But again, just because now the whole world is going towards that point, don't you think that this is also the right time for Pakistan to reverse its gear? But no, Pakistan wouldn't do that. Pakistan has always gone down that line. So why would Pakistan want to reverse its gear at this point? Again, let's sit down and understand, where do we stand as Pakistanis? Which is the Pakistan that we want? Is this our Pakistan? Who are the real Pakistanis? If we have, this is something I've said in my previous podcast as well. So, at this point, these questions are very critical. You need to understand why they're critical in the first place, because again, as I said, I've talked about so many of these things before. Put two and two together and see what conclusion you arrive at. And what is it that we need to do at this point? This is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.